My name is Victoria Sterling, and my wedding ring was worth $4.2 million. It was also the key to a $47 billion fraud. For 8 years, I was the perfect wife, the elegant foundation of a financial empire. Today, at our anniversary gala, I'll make my first withdrawal, not of money, of truth, and I will bankrupt him in ways no court ever could. The number is what sticks, $47 billion. I saw it on a carbon copy document that wasn't meant for me, slipped between the pages of a leather-bound portfolio my husband, Alastair, had left in his study. The Sterling Trust's liquidity projection. The figure was so vast it felt fictional, a cartoonish sum for a cartoonish life. Our life, the penthouse that overlooked 2 cities, the private gallery of modern art, the whispered deference at every charity ball, it all hummed on the fuel of that number. And according to the footnote in tiny, damning print, a significant portion of its asset base was tied to patents held under my name. Patents I had signed over a power of attorney I didn't remember granting for estate planning purposes. I was not a businesswoman. I was the ambience, Alastair's most valuable acquisition, as the glossy profiles said. I had a master's in art history, which he found charmingly useless. My role was to be beautiful, to be silent at the right times, and to host impeccably. I thought our marriage was a partnership of different strengths. I was the art, he was the ledger. I never realized I was also a line item. The discovery didn't come in a single moment. It came in a slow, chilling drip, a forgotten signature on a document I was told was for a charity, a casual mention from a CFO at a dinner. Victoria's intellectual contributions are so passively valuable, met with a swift, silencing glance from Alastair. The way my old university friend, a struggling biotech researcher, had her funding suddenly cut after she asked me curious questions about my name being on competing patents. I hired someone, not a detective, but a forensic accountant named Clara, a woman who looked like a librarian and could dismantle a Fortune 500 company with a spreadsheet. I paid her with jewels Alastair had given me, sold discreetly in another country. Her report was a work of devastating art. My name, my identity, was the clean, respectable face on a network of shell companies and inflated asset valuations. The patents for sustainable packaging materials based on my long-ago undergraduate thesis were worthless, but as collateral in the Sterling Trust, they were valued at over $3 billion. I was the ghost collateral for a phantom fortune. Alastair hadn't just married me. He had securitized me. My social grace, my family's old name, though no longer its money, and my unwitting signature were the human-grade polish on a gargantuan Ponzi scheme. The $47 billion was a mirage, and I was the most beautiful part of the illusion. The night of our anniversary gala, I stood before a mirror, fastening a necklace worth more than Clara's lifetime fees. The woman looking back was a stranger I had been meticulously dressed to play. The rage I felt wasn't hot. It was the temperature of absolute zero, a perfect, still cold that allowed for perfect, still calculation. He had used my love, my trust, and my name to build a house of cards on a cliff's edge. I would not knock it over. I would simply open every window and let the truth blow through. My revenge would not be a divorce lawsuit. It would be a controlled demolition. I would use my position, my access, and the very invisibility he had cultivated for me. I would become a ghost in the machine of his own making, gently loosening screws in the foundation. I had already started, a whispered doubt to a key investor's wife here, a misdirected, confidential document left in a semi-public place there. The first, almost imperceptible tremors before an earthquake. I smoothed my gown, a masterpiece of silent couture. Alastair entered, radiating proprietary pride. "You look like billions, my dear," he said, kissing my cheek. I smiled, the same elegant, empty smile I'd practiced for years. "Thank you, my love," I replied, my voice a soft, unwavering note. "It's all about perceived value, isn't it?" For a fraction of a second, his eyes flickered with something, not suspicion, but the faintest unease, like a master hearing a single off-key note in his symphony. He brushed it away. He built an empire on a lie and used me as the cornerstone. He thinks I'm a decorative asset, too polished to understand the ledger. But I've been studying his accounts, and tonight I begin the audit of a lifetime. His fortune is a castle in the sky, and I have just learned how to turn off the gravity. The gala was a masterpiece of my new craft, performance art as reconnaissance. Every smile at Alastair's associates was a probe. Every nod at a regulator's wife was a subtle invitation. While he schmoozed with investors, I stood with Elena Rossi, wife of the head of the Financial Securities Authority. We discussed the difficulty of authenticating Renaissance-era dyes. "It's all about provenance and chemical breakdown," I sighed, swirling my champagne. "Without the right test, the most beautiful masterpiece can be a brilliant fake." Her eyes, sharp behind polite interest, met mine. "A fear in my husband's world, too," she said quietly. The connection was made. Not an accusation, but a shared language of doubt. Phase 1 of my audit was social engineering. I began a curated campaign of vulnerability among the inner circle. At a luncheon, I accidentally confided in Celia, the most gossiping of the investor wives, about my silly stress. All these valuations and patents in my name, I laughed, a delicate hand to my forehead. Alastair handles it, of course, but sometimes it feels like I'm living in a house of numbers I don't understand. The next week, at a charity board meeting, I subtly redirected conversation to a news story about a tech founder jailed for fraud. "It's frightening," I murmured, "how something so solid can just evaporate. It makes you wonder what's truly solid." The seeds of unease, planted in the most fertile soil imaginable, the bored, wealthy, and paranoid. Meanwhile, with Clara the forensic architect, I moved on phase 2, evidence acquisition. My goal wasn't to steal documents, too risky. It was to create a mirrored, independent record. I used my art research as cover. I commissioned a prestigious, discreet conservator to appraise the potential degradation of the antique lacquer on my husband's office desk, a 2-day process that required high-resolution, ambient photograph of the entire room, including the papers left in careful disarray on his desk. The conservator's report came with a digital gallery of photos. Clara, from those razor-sharp images of blurred financial models and network diagrams, began mapping the actual flow of capital. It was a siphon, pulling from new investors to pay dividends to old ones, with my patents as the decorative plug. The most dangerous step was digital. Alastair's personal tablet, which he used for non-secure communications and casual browsing, was fingerprint locked, but he often absently tapped it open while drinking his morning coffee, his attention on the news. For a week, I practiced. The key was a distraction. On a Thursday, as he scanned headlines, I clumsily knocked a priceless jade figurine from a side table. It shattered on the marble with a catastrophic, beautiful crash. He jerked, his thumb hitting the tablet sensor as he turned, his face a mask of shock. "Victoria." The device, unlocked, lay on the arm of his chair. My apology was a torrent of artful, distressed tears. While he rang for a maid, my own phone, in my trembling hand, used a closed-range, pre-configured app to clone its data in 14 seconds. The figurine was a 19th century replica worth $5,000. The data was priceless. What Clara found in the clone was the blueprint for the endgame. It wasn't just financial models. It was a series of encrypted but not fully deleted message drafts to his fixer. Concerning me, V's continued public profile is essential. Ensure the Zurich clinic remains on standby. Her stress must be framed as a gradual, tragic decline following potential market volatility. My blood iced over. His exit strategy, if the fraud unraveled, was to have me declared mentally incompetent, a grieving, unstable wife who imagined conspiracies. The Zurich clinic was not for my health. It was my intended gilded cage, a permanent silencing. The coldness in me turned to diamond. He wasn't just a thief. He was a surgeon planning to remove the inconvenient part of his scheme, my mind, my credibility. I adjusted my plan accordingly. My revenge now had a new, urgent layer, preempting my own destruction. I scheduled a private wellness checkup with the most respected and discreet neurologist in the city, referred by Elena Rossi. I underwent a full battery of cognitive tests. The result was a pristine, confidential report stating my mental faculties were exceptional. I locked one copy in a safety deposit box under a dummy corporation and mailed another to my sister's lawyer with instructions to open only upon receipt of a specific phrase. Then, I made my first active financial move. Using a complex chain of prepaid cards and a crypto wallet Clara established, I began diverting tiny, imperceptible fractions of my own household allowance, money that was a rounding error in the $47 billion lie, into a series of dark pool market bets. Short positions against the most overvalued, sterling trust-linked companies in his portfolio. I wasn't stealing. I was placing a side bet on the collapse I was engineering. My own insider trading, perfectly concealed by my total absence from the official records. The stage was now set. I had the social doubts simmering, the mirrored financial map, the evidence of his intent to destroy me, and a pristine bill of mental health. I had also quietly begun to profit from his coming ruin. He thinks he's playing financial chess, moving billion-dollar pieces. He doesn't realize I've been playing a different game entirely. I'm not on the board. I'm the restorer in the museum gallery, and I've just finished my report proving the masterpiece he's built his temple around is a forgery. All that's left is to choose the moment to present my findings to the board of directors. The world, the final move in any audit is the presentation of findings. I chose the Sterling Trust's annual Future Horizons Summit, a gathering of every investor, regulator, and journalist who mattered. Alastair would take the stage to unveil record growth. I would unveil the rot. My preparation was clinical. I wore a suit, not a gown, armor of another kind. In my clutch, I carried two devices, a sleek silver thumb drive and a cheap prepaid phone. The drive contained Clara's full forensic presentation, a devastating slide deck of mirrored financials, siphoned funds, and the scanned images of documents from his own desk. The phone had one number programmed, a contact at the Financial Securities Authority, courtesy of my new friend, Elena Rossi. Alastair's speech was a masterpiece of arrogance. He spoke of unshakable assets and visionary collateral. On the giant screen behind him, infographics soared. When he reached his crescendo, the valuation of our proprietary patent portfolio hitting a new imaginary high, I made my way to the side of the stage, a silent, smiling specter. He saw me, a flicker of confusion breaking his rhythm. And of course, he ad-libbied, recovering with a patronizing smile, none of this would be possible without the unwavering support of my wife, Victoria, the heart of our enduring value. He gestured for me to join him. The audience applauded politely. They expected a wave, a blush, a silent adornment. I took the podium. The lights were blinding. I adjusted the microphone, my voice calm, clear, and amplified through the hall. Thank you, Alastair. Enduring value is an interesting phrase. I turned to the audience. My husband is a brilliant man, his true genius. However, lies not in creating value, but in the theatrical projection of it. The silence was absolute. Alistair's hand shot out to gently, forcefully take my elbow. "Darling, you're overwhelmed," he said into his own mic, his smile strained. The perfect prelude to the tragic breakdown. I didn't flinch. I held up the silver drive. This contains an independent forensic audit of the Sterling Trust. It details how $47 billion in stated value relies on patents in my name, patents I signed over under false pretenses, patents which are scientifically and commercially worthless. I looked at the press pit. Copies are waiting for you at the registration desk. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Gasps. Alistair's face was a mask of pure, undiluted fury. "She is unwell," he boomed, switching to his planned narrative. "This is a symptom of a terrible stress I've tried to shield her from." I then held up the cheap phone. This connects to a server holding my recent comprehensive neurological evaluation from Dr. Emilchin, confirming my soundness of mind. It also holds a scanned directive for my involuntary committal to the Basel Clinic in Zurich, dated and signed by my husband last month. I tapped the screen. A copy of the damning clinic agreement flashed on the giant screen behind us, replacing his soaring graphics. The crowd roared. I turned to him, my voice dropping, but the mic catching every word. "You securitized my identity. You planned to institutionalize my truth. Your only error was believing the art on the wall couldn't read the ledger." I walked off the stage, through the parting crowd, as the room descended into bedlam. I didn't look back. Outside, Clara waited in a nondescript car. As we pulled away, we heard the first alerts chime on our phones. The short positions I'd taken against his core holdings were already triggering automatic sell-offs. The house of cards was not falling. It was being digitally liquidated, algorithmically, in real time. The aftermath was a quiet spectacle. The authorities moved in, armed with my package. The headlines were brutal. The Sterling Trust was frozen, then dismantled. Alistair faced a litany of charges. My role was that of a witness, a victim who had outmaneuvered her captor. The court granted me full control of my name, my patents, and a not insignificant settlement from the remaining real assets. I sold the penthouse, the art, the jewels, the money I'd made from my short positions. The bet against my own stolen life was substantial. I used it to found a small, fierce nonprofit dedicated to forensic financial literacy for women. I saw Alistair one last time across a crowded courtroom. The polished titan was gone, replaced by a diminished, bitter man in a cheap suit. He stared at me with a hate that had nowhere to go. I felt nothing, no heat, no cold, simply an empty space where his empire and my prison used to be. He built a castle on the fiction of my name. I didn't storm the gates. I simply published the architectural flaws to every lender in the kingdom. Now, the ruins are his to inhabit, and I am elsewhere building something small, real, and entirely my own. The audit is complete. The account is closed.